by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner. Getzlaf center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Ilya able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
And the fans want one. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
Fans, it's Patrick and Eddie for tonight's episode of the Forever Mighty post-game show.
I'm back.
You're back. You literally got home 5 minutes ago from your flight from my house to the other flight, to the other flight, to the bus ride, to the car ride, to the hitchhiking, to the 15-mile walk in snow. So welcome
It feels
home.
like it. It feels like it. The amount of shit that I went through to get home was... I'm sure you guys discussed it on the last podcast because I got a couple messages from people making sure I was okay. But yeah, it was a tough road to get back. A couple extra cities I didn't want to have to go through, but I finally made it and made it back. Was supposed to be on the last pod, but made it back for this one. So nice.
Did your baggage make it back to your house?
Finally, yeah, my baggage came yesterday. And if to top it all off too. The guy called me, told me my bag was going to be there around 10 to 11. So I had to top everything off. That bag made me miss class. But then even more on top of that, he ended up coming early. So if I had known he was going to come early, I would have been able to get ready and go to class. So still even after the trip was over, I was missing things because of the trip. So, it was fun. It was worth it. It was worth it in the end. It was fun to get back out there.
The trip was a goodie. Jay and I covered it, I think, like 19 podcasts ago. You've been gone for about 2 months, so it's a pleasure to have you back, Ed. It's a good thing to have our Canadian third on the podcast. The Ducks fall to the Flames tonight, Eddie, 6-1. Yeah, I'm not upset about it.
Yeah, not really.
Right?
No. Well, how many games left? 3 games left after this, and Detroit won today. The Rangers won today. I think that's it for the teams that are vying in position for the Ducks. I think New Jersey and Ottawa and the Kings are too far out of reach for the Ducks to fall that far. But Detroit winning was big, and the Rangers winning was big. And then whenever Buffalo plays again, hopefully Buffalo wins. I know, like, we're talking about small percentage points at this point, like being from 7 to 5 is like I think 1.5 or 2%. But when that's what you're fighting for at this point in the season, it matters. Like it's 1 or 2%. It's a big difference because what else you got to fight for at this point? Like what's the point of winning the last 3 games when you can get a couple extra percentage points chance to get the first overall pick or get a top pick or have a better chance at even just getting a top 5 pick. So
there is no sense in winning the last 10 games of the season.
No.
I mean, their playoff hopes ended last game, which Jason and I are so dumb we didn't realize. Like, we didn't realize Colorado and Arizona played against each other, and that would be the deciding factor in points. We both looked at the games remaining and added the points in our dumb heads, and we're like, oh, yeah, there's still a mathematical chance, which is hilarious. We were wrong. So,
clearly.
Very much. If you had been on the pod, you would have known and would have told us because Canadians are infinitely smarter. But this game was Jesus! It was like tankathon. It just felt like there was no hockey being played by the Ducks.
That's not new. I
guess
lately,
relatively new. I mean, like prior to GM, BM, interim head coach, whatever guy, Pancake Bob. Prior to him, this was normal hockey. This was very normal hockey. Under Bob Murray, this is kind of suspect. Like, what the hell is going on here? Are the Flames that good?
To be fair, I think the last game I was a part of was game 71, and then I've seen basically highlights of the Ducks playing well, and they've played better. They've played better from game 72.
You've missed 8 games.
Yeah, so from game 72 up to game 78, they've played better. I think at one point they were 3-1-1 in their last 5 games before this one. And they looked like a better team, but you knew going into this one, you kind of circled this one on your calendar and said, well, the Flames are trying to, I think they're still within grasp of top of the Pacific Division with the fall that the Sharks have been on. That's what they're trying to get right now. They would like home ice advantage throughout the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, which is big for them, right? Like, anytime you can, and again, we're talking about teams right now fighting for small things. We're talking about the Ducks fighting for percentage points. You're talking about some of the top teams like the Flames fighting for first in the Pacific. Actually, they pulled pretty far ahead.
Hey, the Flames are first in the West, just so you know.
Yeah, they pulled 8 points in front of the Sharks tonight, and the Sharks have 5 games remaining, so they basically locked it up.
And they're 9 points ahead of the Jets and the Predators.
So it's big. It's a big win for them. It honestly is. It's a big win for them, because if you can lock that up and you're still fighting to get in front, as far in front and enough in front of the Sharks that they can't catch you, so that you have home ice advantage through the entire first 3 rounds of the playoffs. For the Flames, that's massive, because generally they struggle on the road. This year they've obviously been a better team, but they've been a better team in general. But it is hard to play in Calgary unless you're the Ducks of the past in the playoffs. But getting that one extra game is huge, and the Flames have been struggling to score as of late. As the broadcast mentioned, I think a million times. And
what a quality matchup they would get in the playoffs if they started today. They played the freaking Avalanche. So, yeah, what a quality matchup for the Flames there. That's a 5-game series. That's a 5-game.
It should be, because of how good the Flames are, and it seems like they were on a slump, as crazy as it is with the forward talent that this team has. So they went over 156 minutes without getting a goal from a forward until they got goals from 5 forwards tonight. Or I think Monahan had 2 of them. But
and they hadn't had one. I think Allers said almost 8 periods until Monahan scored that first one of his.
Yeah, it was just over 8 periods of time. I mean, it was unbelievable that this team, when you look at the fact that they have Monahan and Goodrow and Elias Lindholm and Matthew Tkachuk and even Frolik and Backlund. I mean, that top 6 right there. The fact that they went scoreless in that period of time, but then you still got guys on the blue line like Mark Giordano, who it doesn't really matter. And I think he got the first goal of the game for the Flames anyway. So, yeah, they're an extremely talented group. I don't know if I'd put them in the group of being a sweep, just because Mike Smith, right? That's the question mark that's been for this team all year.
Yeah, they're 18th in the NHL in team save percentage, whereas the Avs, I just looked it up right here, are 12th. And they definitely don't have the Sharks team save percentage, which is probably going to be pretty hilarious to watch. The second worst save percentage in the league take on the Vegas Golden Knights, if that turns out to be the thing for the Sharks. But the Flames, yeah, man, you're right. I mean, they haven't really had it in net. I mean, at one point they did with Rittich, but you turn that crease over to Smith, and it's a wild card. Like, you don't know what Smith you're going to get night after night. It's kind of a brutal thing between the pipes for the Flames right now.
Yeah, the good thing is, and you talk about teams who go into the playoffs and they've got one guy, and you're like, if that guy doesn't do well, it's over for them. The Flames have 2 guys who could get hot. Rittich was really good this year. He struggled a bit. Then Mike Smith went on a roll, and that's why he has the crease right now. So the Flames have that going for them, but you still have that inconsistency of, well, what if they both aren't just good? You lose home ice advantage. It doesn't matter if you're playing Dallas, you're playing Arizona, you're playing Colorado. You've now got to go out on the road and win some games, and they've got the goal scoring to do it. But it'll be interesting to see. I think the first few rounds for them could be easier. I think they could beat Vegas. I think they could beat San Jose. But if they get in a battle with the Jets or with the Predators, I think that's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, it could be. They're just really speedy, and they can actually just attack you on multiple levels. And that's a huge thing for them. Like, Mark Giordano has shorthanded goals to the defenseman. He gets the first goal, I think, tonight, right? He had the first one of the night for the Flames to tie the game after Andy Welinski scored. So they have scoring all over the place. But let's talk about our Ducks. I'm tired of talking about the Calgary Flames. It's unfortunate that the Ducks have to face them one more time at Honda Center this year next Wednesday. I'll be at that game. I'll be chanting, "You probably can win here," because I don't really feel like like the "you can't win here" is going to be a thing anymore with how the Flames have been playing this year, especially against the Ducks. Especially after tonight. But Ryan Miller was in net tonight. Unfortunately for him, there wasn't a whole lot he could do on many of these goals. You really can't hold Miller responsible.
No, you can't. And I was a little bit surprised to see him get the start. I thought Gibson would go against Calgary and Miller would go against Edmonton tomorrow.
Oh, Gibby wants Connor McDavid. He wants to shut down the between the legs top shelf goal.
Oh man, if you haven't seen that goal. Who were they playing last night? Was it Dallas? I think it was
Dallas. Yeah, but it wasn't Ben Bishop. Wasn't Ben Bishop. I'm sorry. Wasn't American great. Vesna winner coming up. Wasn't
Yeah,
him.
it was Khudobin, but I mean Connor McDavid casually skates his way to 40 goals, and Potts his 40th goal like that, which is unbelievable.
Almost as good as Austin Matthews.
Then he gets asked, I think after the game, he gets asked, how do you feel about putting up a new career high in points? Or it might have been the previous game because he had a 4-point night.
Wait. Can I answer for him? How he answered? I don't even know. Let me just tell you how he answered.
Take a guess. Yeah.
Well, it's been a really disappointing season. I don't really care about the points.
It's already too long.
It's more about my teammates.
It's already too long. He said whatever. That's what he said. It was not short.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
He was not feeling it, but he's at I think 114 points now. Triple back to back 100-point seasons for this guy. Now we're getting off on a tangent for Connor McDavid, but
almost as good as a Russian. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but before we hop off that with the Oilers, you're getting dangerously close to losing that bet for Leon Draisaitl.
I stand by my bet. He's not hitting 50.
He's at 47 with 5 games remaining.
That's great. He's not hitting it.
It's funny because right after that, even I didn't feel too comfortable with the bet. He had 43 goals, I think, with 7 games remaining. And you felt pretty confident. Then he goes out and gets a hat trick.
I'm still confident.
Goes out and gets a hat trick. Then he gets another goal, and he's playing on the line with Connor McDavid now. So it's
of course he is. He can't anchor his own line, so he's got to get the feeds from McDavid.
The interesting thing is could Draisaitl beat Ovechkin to 50? One hat trick for Draisaitl. It's a lot, but a hat trick for Draisaitl gets him to 50. Ovi's 1 away, so likely Ovi hits that in his next game, but. It's close now. I mean, it's not out of question to say that Draisaitl can get to 50 before Ovi does. That's like a whole other bet in itself.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to get to 125 points first? The other Russian, Kucherov, or McDavid? I'm just curious.
Kucherov.
I just want to make sure you understood that Russians are better than Canadians at hockey. Just throw that out there.
It's all right. You got an American up there. You've got Patrick Kane.
Somewhere. Yeah, he's somewhere up there, almost at 100 points.
No, he's at 104.
Oh, 104. He finally passed.
Anyway,
okay, that's good.
Let's
good.
move on.
Let's get on here. Let's go with the game. And this game was tough, you guys. So if you're listening to the show and you're giggling at the fact we haven't started it yet, that's because the game was hardly watchable if you're a Ducks fan. Ryan Getzlaf's still out, of course. There's no reason to play him at this point. He's actually being evaluated as to why he's having spasms. He's having back spasms?
Yeah, back spasms.
Yeah.
And he's seeing a doctor now because they
Not
don't know
good
why
news.
it's happening. Yeah.
Not good news.
That's worrying a bit, right? Like,
Yeah, that's
the fact
good.
they don't know why it's happening, a little bit ominous, but hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, it's not good news for Ryan Getzlaf. Hopefully they figure it out. Good news is they have like 6 months to figure it out. So we'll see what happens with Getzy. Hopefully he's better sooner rather than later. I'd like to see him in game next week when I'm at the game against Calgary. Getzlaf out Manson now, which just, I mean, can we just say now it's concussion? That's got to be a concussion.
I never saw it. I never saw what happened.
Okay. So who was he trying to hit? Oh, Jesus. I forgot he was trying to hit behind the net. He goes in for a hit behind the net last game, and he ends up going helmet or face to helmet, whoever he was trying to hit. And dude, he was down like that, just flat out down. Didn't grab his face, didn't do anything, barely moved, and he was done for. It was not a nice looking play for Josh Manson, and the trainer had to come out. He wasn't KO'd. It was definitely a TKO. It was like he wasn't out laying on the ice, but it wasn't pretty yet. You didn't see a replay or anything of this?
No, I think this game was right when I got back, the night of I got back, and I got back at like 2 a.m. So that wasn't happening. That was not on my radar to go back and check in on the highlights. I heard he got injured, but then I never kind of went back and checked on it. But he's not the only guy now, right? Like all of a sudden, I guess there's never been a time where the Ducks were ever healthy 100%, but now it's Getzlaf, it's Manson, Richie's out, Kessler's out, Gooley's out. Who am I missing? Kash is still out, obviously.
Kash is still out. Yeah, I think we're good. I think you hit everybody pretty easily there. You got all the players. It was just not a fun night for Joe. I was at the end of the game too, man. That was so hard. It was really hard to see him go down like that. So he's out. Richie's out. I never saw Richie get hurt, but Richie and Kessler are still out too. Same with Gooley. Dotchin gets called up. That was what signaled the bad news for the Ducks with Josh Manson. So just it is what it is at this point, guys. I mean, if you've been playing along all season and you're hanging in for Game 79, and you're hoping to see something magical happen here, even though they're out of the playoffs. It just wasn't tonight. The lines, as we look at them here, Sprong, Henrique, and Perry, Rakell, Shore, Silverberg, Sherwood, Steele, and Terry, Jones, Grant, and Rowney, and then the defensive pairs. We got Lindy with Larson, Dodson and Fowler, Megna and Holzer. I mean, are we not used to this by now, Eddie? Are we not used to this shuffling lineup and this injury-riddled team? It seems like this team you just can't count on the big names to stay in the lineup night after night. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it's a yearly thing now. It's an annual thing where they have big guys out of the lineup pretty much at every point of the season. There's somebody, one of the bigger names or one of the most effective players they have is generally out of the lineup. And this year was Corey Perry for the first half of the season. He gets back. Andre Cashin gets done for the season. So they're without two of their best right wingers for the entire year, and then you've got guys just going in and out of the lineup here and there. Kessler obviously still not 100%. Now Getzlaf, for I think the second time he's gone out with injury for more than a couple games this year. And I don't know if there's been anybody who's played all 82 games this year. I think Manson might have been the only guy that was getting close to that, and now he's hurt. So I would be surprised to see if any of the Ducks actually got close to 80 this year. I really don't think there was anybody. Adam Henrique might be another guy that was getting close to it, but it's been a tough year all around for pretty much everybody.
So Manson went in to hit Tanner Pearson in Vancouver, and it was kind of a physical game towards the end, and that's where he took the hit. Went face to helmet. It's not pretty. So the name slipped me. I went back and looked, and that's what it was. But yeah, you're right. It's just the way it's been. I mean, no one's been healthy this year. I mean, or last year, or the year before. Like, we always joke about it on the show. I mean, Jason and I've said the same thing. It feels like ever since what was that? I can't. It just slipped my mind right now. But why do I want to say it's not pox? They didn't have pox.
Oh, the mumps. They had the mumps. Yeah.
There you go. I'm thinking the pox, like they had smallpox. I'm an idiot. Yeah, the mumps. They had the mumps where, like, Crosby had, like, the quagmire chant. It was like, oh, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with me. But, I mean, it went around the league. And, ever since that year, it just felt like this team just hasn't been healthy. And I think that was, like, 2013. It's been a long time. Yeah. So we can get into this game here. Slow start. It didn't look like it was going to be high scoring for either team. And it just, Ducks get lucky here. Puck bounces out in front to Welinski. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that Mike Smith decided to poke it because that guy can't stand to have a puck around him. So he pokes the puck as the puck goes out in front. Welinski's able to slam home basically a one-time pass from Mike Smith, hits the corner, and it's 1-0 Anaheim. And not a bad play there for the Ducks to create the chance in front, and Welinski pounds it home.
Yeah, and he pounds it right over Mike Smith's head, too, because Smith is still crouched over from poke checking the puck, and Welinski almost takes off his head. Great shot by him. It's nice to see him finally get his first goal. I honestly thought they made a mistake when they first said this because I could have sworn he had gotten it before, but I think it was back maybe earlier this year or last year where somebody ended up tipping in one of his shots. And originally they thought it was his first goal, and then it ended up getting changed. But it's nice to see him finally get one. I think the only guy who's up right now who hasn't got one is Jakob Larsson, who's still looking for his first NHL goal. So he's got 3 games to do it, and hopefully he could get it, because there's been a ton of them this year, right? There's been a ton of guys who recorded their first NHL goal. A lot of the rookies coming up, obviously Welinski, I think Kiefer Sherwood as well. So it's been an interesting year for that, but it was nice to see him get on the board. The Ducks started slow, but leading up into this goal, they had a couple chances where they started turning things around, and I think it was the only part of this entire game where you're like, oh, they're actually controlling play. They're playing a little bit better than the Flames are.
Yeah, and that was it. I really feel like the first period was pretty much Anaheim's game, and Giordano's able to step into one, basically just blowing it by Ryan Miller on Blocker's side. I mean, after Rakell was able to thread the needle to Jones on the play prior to that, and Jones that poor kid, man. I just wish he would have buried that. What the confidence would have done for him on that one. He had just a wide open chance on a breakaway on Smith on a hell of a play by Rakell. Gets denied. Puck goes back up the ice. Flames control for a bit, and Giordano just blows it by Miller. I mean, what are you going to do? It just happens sometimes. And Giordano was my Norris pick. I don't know. I know you weren't on our bonus show, so that's the only pick I'll reveal. But I mean, Giordano's having a hell of a year, man.
Well, I think we talked about this multiple times this year about different awards, and I think Giordano should be the guy who is the favorite for that. I mean, the year he's had, and he'll get up there with some of the guys like Hedman and Burns will be up and involved in those discussions, and maybe Morgan Riley as well. But Giordano has just been consistently good all year for the Flames. There hasn't been a time where he's really gone on the slump and hasn't contributed to this team. And for a guy, I think he's at 34, 35, having himself a career year is pretty impressive. And he's not only putting up points, I think he's been one of the best defensive defensemen this year. The Flames, they mentioned going into this game, were the team who allows the fewest shots against in the entire league. So a lot of that credit has to go to Mark Giordano really being the general for that blue line and for that entire team and playing in all situations. So it's unbelievable seeing what he's done, and not surprised that he gets the first one of the game for them.
Yeah, he's over 70 points. He's been an absolute beast this year. And it's kind of feels like a long time coming for him, for Giordano. I feel like he's been good longer than just this year. This year's definitely one of his peak years, but he's always been a good defenseman, and he's been with the Flames. I think they said on the broadcast all 13 seasons of his career. In the NHL, he had 1 year in the KHL, which is really random to me. I didn't even remember that.
Is that lockout?
So, probably.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and check. I'm not sure. But the Ducks get out of the first period 1-1. You kind of figure, okay, it's going to be maybe a close game. The Ducks can hang with them. Not the case. And Sean Monahan had a lot to say this game. He had 2 goals and 2 assists. He gets on the board here. Anderson with a slap shot from the top of the circles on the rush. Miller kicks out a fat rebound to the high slot. And Monahan's right there with the stick on the ice. Keep your sticks on the ice, kids, and things like this happen. Sean Monahan's able to roof it over Ryan Miller, man. Is what it is. It happens. A point shot goes through. Miller kicks it out to the slot, and that's where all the happy things happen in the NHL. And now it's a 2-1 game.
Yeah, he was on a huge slump. I mean, the entire forward group for the Flames were, but Sean Monahan has been one of those players this year for the Flames that have just been unbelievable. They've got 4 guys up front who are, I think, going to hit either. I think they're over 70 or could hit 80 points this year for the whole lot of them, which is ridiculous. And the fact, like I said earlier, that they were even on a slump with the guys that they have up front is insane. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one for Miller. I'm sure he probably wants that one back, but Sean Monahan shouldn't really be allowed to operate in that much space and be alone in front to pot that rebound. So it's a tough one for Ryan Miller, but the Ducks are going to look at that one and say somebody probably should have had Sean Monahan, because that's one of the last guys on this team that you want to leave open and alone to cash in a rebound like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure who was on the ice there for the Ducks forward-wise. I didn't catch it and make note, but Sprong, Sherwood, and Steele were victimized tonight. They were out there for 3 goals against. So not a strong look for that line together. It just, what are those 3 players together? I mean, they just were not great tonight. I think it was Larson in front of the net who got caught on that play. What are you going to do, though? I mean, these kind of things happen. Also, it's 2-1. Jones goes to the box for cross-checking. Jones is just a big kid, knocks down Zars. I think it was, how do you say his name?
Zarnik.
Zarnik. It's Zarnik, yeah. He gets knocked down. They say it was in the numbers, but I mean, okay. Flames go to the power play. James Neal cashes in, I think, by his thigh or his shin guard or something. I originally thought this goal was Monahan again.
Yeah. So did everybody in is it still Scotiabank Saddledome? I'm just gonna call it Saddledome.
Let's just assume it is. Let's assume it is.
So did everybody in the Flames arena, because they thought he got a hat trick in the last game too. So it was one that I didn't see. I think this is how James Neal scores goals now, is that he ends up getting them off his ass, off his leg. Because I mean, let's be honest, we talked about it this year as well. He's been one of the guys who's been one of the worst free agent signings this year, where he just has not been able to score on a regular basis. They paid a lot of money for this guy too. They paid a lot of money for James Neal, and this is probably not the type of goals you want him to score. But if right now, I think they'll take anything from this guy. So it's a tough one for Miller, because you can't really do anything for that one when it deflects in off a player, especially right in front like that. But James Neal will take it. That's all he can really get this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, besides the fact that he hadn't scored in 8 periods, Ford hasn't scored in 8 periods. It was nice to see James Neal get a goal if you're a James Neal fan, but that guy's been absolute garbage this year. I mean, he got paid all that money, like you said, from his outstanding year in Vegas the year prior to come to the Flames this year, and he just hasn't done anything. He's had injuries, but he's also older. just not quite worked out for the Flames. And luckily for them, they haven't really had to rely on him, honestly.
No, and that's, you know, what's insane is that this forward group could be even better if he was any bit close to what he was last year. You know, you look at the fact that we mentioned the top line of Gaudreau, Monahan, and Lindholm being one of the best in the NHL, and then you've got Backlund, Tkachuk, and Frolik, who are a very underrated line. Then you would have a guy like James Neal, who arguably could have been on that second line. Might have been the guy that they brought in to go on that top line, and then Elias Lindholm stole that spot from everybody. But, you know, imagine if James Neal can get hot for the playoffs. If he can just somehow get... I mean, he always has that potential, right? He used to be, at one point, one of the most lethal snipers in this league. So that's a scary proposition for a lot of teams, just thinking, you know, James Neal at any point could turn it on. And, you know, he's been a big game player in the past. So that the Flames, at least, are hoping that, you know, this isn't one that's going to get him off his horse and he's all of a sudden going to turn into a completely different player. But maybe the playoffs and the different atmosphere in the playoffs are what's going to get James Neal going, because I think he's making like $5.5 million. And,
yeah, he's making a lot of money.
The production he's had this year has been nowhere near equaling the value that they paid for him.
Yeah, it's been brutal for him. I mean, he's always been that guy that's kind of been the goal scorer, and you know, this season just hasn't been his way, which didn't bother me at all. He's not on the Ducks, so I could care less. But a scary thing would happen this period, man. Not a good second period for the Ducks. Not only are they down 3-1 at this point, but Troy Terry, just brutal. He's been on fire at times, and especially with the goals. He was on fire before he comes to Anaheim, and he's cooled off a bit here. But he's preparing to play these last game or two and then go down to the goals of the playoffs. The goals, I think playoffs start in 2 weeks. He blocks a shot from Mark Giordano. He has to crawl to the bench, goes to the locker room, and doesn't come back, man. That's, God, really, like, just another injury. Like, do we really need to keep piling these on? We're already out of the playoffs. Like, why are the hockey gods still smiting us night after night? I just don't get it.
It's a bigger loss to the San Diego Gulls if he's out long term, because it doesn't really matter for the Ducks for the remaining 3 games if Troy Terry is in or out. No offense to him. I'm just saying, you know, that's the way it is right now with where the Ducks are in the standings. It's probably better for them if they don't have Troy Terry's skill in the lineup if they're looking to lose games and get higher position. But it is a tough loss for the San Diego Gulls, who he would be arguably their best forward when he gets back down there. He was for most of this year. Hopefully it's not long term. You know, hopefully it's just a bone bruise and they kept him out for precautionary reasons, or it's, you know, something that's not super serious, and that he'll be able to come back in 2 weeks. Because if he's out for any length of time, it's a major loss to San Diego, despite the fact that they're going to be getting Brendan Gooley likely back, Jakob Larson and Sam Steele, Max Jones, among others. That's the biggest piece that they could have lost in Troy Terry, because he was really controlling play for everybody when he was down in San Diego, playing on a line at times with Max Jones and also Sam Steele, and making those players better in the AHL. So let's hope it's not long term, because it would be just typical this year for the injury issues to not only spill over into the AHL and affect the Gulls as well.
Maybe the Ducks are just putting a mustache and some hair, a wig on Ryan Getzlaf, and they're resting him for the Gulls playoff run. They're going to send him down there and let him pretend he's somebody else. Just do that. Just do that.
Why
instead.
not, right? Yeah, I'm sure nobody would notice this bald 30-year-old.
They're putting a hair on him, okay? Like, they're going to put hair on him, and that's just the way it's going to be. Oh, I'm sorry, one of your fans called you on your phone. I didn't want to have that on there.
You know how it is.
Yeah, not a big deal. Eddie getting phone calls.
This is what happens when you haven't been on the show for 8 games and you're trying to remember to get everything set up.
So Troy Terry questionable for return, which always means that's just meaning he's not coming back, which he didn't in tonight's game. Not a good thing. Hampus Lindholm, my boy, would wire one off the post. Wouldn't be good enough here in the third period. Ducks are down 3-1 at this point. Brody from the point blast one is tipped in from Derek Ryan. One of the easiest tip plays I've seen this season. I mean, really, it was just he's just floating in front of the net, unaccosted whatsoever. Fowler slowly trailing behind him, and it's tipped by Miller. All of a sudden, now it's 4-1. I mean, what are you going to do? It's just the way it was for Ryan Miller tonight. He had no help.
Yeah, it's the fourth line from the Flames, too, which is painful. And it's a better fourth line than other teams do have.
Derek Ryan. Highly sought-after Derek Ryan. Do you remember that over the summer?
He's a third line player. I think he's better than a fourth line player, and they're playing with Mangiapane, who's a very good young player for the Flames as well. And I'm not even sure who's the third member on that fourth line. But when you have those two guys down there, it's already an above average fourth line to throw over the boards. But either way, it hurts when you get beat by the fourth line and beat that easily. The point shot, I know it floated across right to. I think it was TJ Brody who was wide open. Yep. So that shot was always going to be an open shot for him. But the fact that, Derek Ryan's able to just stick on the ice uncontested in front of Ryan Miller and tip that in, I think that's what's most painful about that one is again, just like the Monahan goal, really not picking up guys in front of the net. It's something that we've struggled with the Ducks all year, something we've pointed out on multiple podcasts that, the Ducks have had problems, especially in the Randy Carlyle era, of picking up players in front of the net. And there's some games they look better. I think most games they've looked better, but then you get these regression games every now and then where you kind of start to pick apart and remember some things that happened in the beginning of the year, and you start to see some similarities between how the Ducks are playing now and how they played under Randy Carlyle. Yeah,
it's just a bad game, man. And it just might be the season's done at this point for the Ducks. And that's what it feels like to me. I mean, I've kind of checked out of the rah, let's go boys. Like, it doesn't really matter at this point. Like Jay and I've talked about it. It's fun when they win, and I really like when they beat division rivals. But it is what it is at this point. I mean, I don't want them to lose, but to see this kind of goal go in, it's just kind of like, oh, well, that's just kind of how our season's gone. It's not ultra disappointing, but it's kind of just like, Fowler, what the hell are you doing?
It still stings, and you're upset at the fact they're losing, but it's not as bad because there's a light at the end of the tunnel in the terms of the draft lottery, right? Like, if they're fighting for a playoff spot, well, either way, like, you're still going to be involved in it and get a higher pick. The draft is the light at the end of the tunnel this year, so it's not as bad in that sense. But I get what you're saying. I mean, for everybody at the game, it's definitely disappointing. When you're at the game, you want them to win because you're in the atmosphere. It's a little bit easier to get more into the game. I mean, when I was down, we were at the Sharks game, and despite the Ducks probably, standings-wise, you would have wanted them to lose that game. When you're there and there's Sharks fans there in your face,
I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this. They can't win. They can't win in Anaheim.
I sympathize for the fans that attend the games. Obviously, this was in Calgary, so if there were Ducks fans there, I sympathize for them as well. But it's tougher to want them to lose when you're at the game, and it's a lot easier for us sitting at home to be like, oh yeah, I'm okay with this 6-1 loss. But when you have to be there and experience and be around the opposing team's fans, it sucks. I was in Toronto earlier this year when the Ducks lost 6-1. Their season was pretty much over at that point too. But you never want to see it happen live. It's a lot more disappointing. So I feel bad for those guys.
Yeah, or if you're a season ticket holder and you're selling your seats because you can't stand to be at this team and you paid all kinds of money for them, that's a tough way, man. If you're a team supporter like that, it's tough. You're right. And the Ducks would find themselves down 4-1. Let's wrap this up, man. The Flames would get 2 goals here. Ryan Miller absolutely stones Mangiapane, or Mangiapane, how do you say his name? I'm not sure. But we'll look like an empty net. Miller gets a piece of it, and then it goes to the point, and the point shot goes in, gets tipped in. Just the way it's been. And all of a sudden now it's 5-1. I don't know what you're going to do here if you're Ryan Miller.
Not much. Same with the last one. I mean, there was, I think, 3 or 4 tip goals in this game, right?
The
Ryan,
6
James
goals
Neal,
to tip into. Yeah.
James Neal, Derek Ryan, the 6th goal for Monahan. This goal was tipped in by Hathaway. Like, again, Ryan Miller didn't have a great game by any means. He made a couple good saves here and there, but it's hard. When you got guys uncontested in front of the net that aren't getting their sticks tied up, and they're able to deflect the puck past you. I mean, that's tough when. You look back at 6-1, you say, at least 4 of those, there's nothing I could do. I mean, it's deflected in front of the net. At that point, you're at the mercy of wherever the puck's going to go. And unfortunately for Ryan Miller, went past him 4 times, and it's a tough game. He was having a good season up until this point, and he's had the struggles here and there. And it's a tough way, if this is the last game of the year for him, it's a tough way to end it out. I hope it isn't. I hope he gets to rebound and at least end the season on a high note for him, because this game had the writing on the wall going into it, that the Flames were ready to burst out and get back to the way they were scoring all season. And, of course, that's the way it turned out, right? So,
I bet you he gets a game before the end of the season. I have to think he's going to get one. I mean, what's the harm in that? I wouldn't even be surprised if he got the home start against the Flames, and then Gibby's able to finish up the season against LA. I kind of feel like that might be the way it goes. With 3 games left, Gibby gets tomorrow, and then Ryan Miller gets to start against the Flames, and then Gibby ends the season against LA. That's my prediction, if you will. There, I don't know. It makes sense to me.
Maybe.
Could be wrong.
I think Miller probably got this matchup. I'm just assuming because they like to look at career numbers, the Ducks do, when they go into games, and I would assume that Miller probably has better career numbers against the Flames than Gibson, and that's why he got the start. Otherwise, it makes no sense. And I don't know why you would rest Gibson for Connor McDavid and the Oilers when the Flames are obviously the better team this year. Again, it doesn't matter because the Ducks aren't going to make the playoffs. They're mathematically eliminated, and at this point, it doesn't really matter who starts against who. But it still is an interesting decision. So maybe with the Flames coming up again and Miller getting beat 6-1, that might be a game where they say, I don't know about that. Maybe he goes against the Kings. I would still think with 3 games remaining, he at least gets one of those 3 starts.
Let's hop into our post-game notes, my friend. Let's talk about Ryan Getzlaf seeing a doctor. Is this really concerning you about back spasms? I mean, I know that doesn't seem like a torn muscle. It's not a bone break. It's not, a ripped MCL, ACL, torn labrum, concussion. But it is concerning. Does it really bother you that much, though? We're kind of at the end of the year. I wonder if it's even something that people need to care about if they're just being over precautious.
I think with the injuries that the Ducks have had this year and like the myriad of injuries they've had, like the different types of injuries they had, the bizarre injuries the Ducks have had, it's always worrying. I'm not worried about him missing the games. The Ducks don't need him to be in the lineup, right? Like it's not going to be an issue. They win the last 3, they lose the last 3, nothing really changes for them. So in that sense, having him in as a player, it's not a big worry for me. But it is, when you don't know what it is, and they clearly came out and said that they don't know why he's having these muscle spasms. It could be something really simple. And I think just with all the injuries that the Ducks have had this year, you always start kind of thinking the worst, and especially when he has to go see a doctor to find out why something is happening. You never know what that could be. But I don't think it's serious. But there's just that worry attached with it this year. The Ducks fans just have that worry around injuries. I mean, we were talking about Troy Terry. We're worried that it could be long term with his.
That's the bigger worry for me is what the Gulls are going to do if they lose Troy Terry to a broken foot, a broken bone in his foot, something like that. It's just not good. The way he crawled back to the bench is pretty concerning.
Yeah, but, as for Getzlaf, I'm sure he's fine, and I'm sure they'll figure out what's going on and it won't be anything severe. But again, like I said, there's always that worry attached when there's a mystery around the injury, when you don't really know what's happening. I mean, we know with Patrick Eaves, for a while we didn't know what it was, and then they announced that it was Guillain-Barré syndrome. I probably butchered the name of that, but they we had no idea what that was, and they didn't know what it was leading up to it until
Right.
they got a consulting from a doctor, and that whole situation kind of lingers over any mysterious injury that the Ducks have now. For a while we thought I think it was John Gibson had a concussion, and it didn't turn out to be the case. He had whiplash or whatever, but you never know, right? They were the Ducks aren't really forthcoming with that information, so we're always kind of left to speculate until the news does come out, and you get these little leaks of things like this where he's seeing a doctor, and to kind of add fuel to the fire.
Well, let's get on to the next topic tonight. You just mentioned Patrick Eaves with Guillain-Barré syndrome. He's now been nominated for the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy. Do you think that he probably should have lost that to Ryan Kesler, or does he deserve it? I'm being sarcastic here, by the way, because, being celebrated for injuries is tough as it is.
Yeah, I think he deserves it.
He does. For sure. 100%. They both do, but he definitely does as well.
He likely deserves to be a finalist as well. I'm not sure, again, who all the nominees are for teams. Last year was clear cut. It was going to be Boyle who won it with what he went through. That was going to be obvious. This year, I don't know, what everybody's been going through and who's been nominated by each team. But from a little bit of a biased opinion, I think you would have to assume that Patrick Eaves is at least a finalist with what he's been going through. The fact that he went through that, missed the entire summer, didn't know if he was ever going to play again, comes back, plays a few games, and then has another injury he has to deal with, and now the weakness is back, and they don't know if it has anything to do with the injury that he had before and the illness he had. So it's been a tough year, but he's persevered through it, and I think he's easily the only guy I think that should have got nominated by the Ducks, and I think he should be a finalist, depending on what the other nominees have gone through this year.
I mean, the other nominees, I think it kind of goes around the board with injuries and all that happens, right? I mean, guys that are persevering through life challenges, game challenges, but I kind of feel like the finalists will be Eves, Montreal Canadian fans, and clearly it's going to be Edmonton fans, to miss
Why
the
Montreal
playoffs.
Canadian fans?
Just because
they're having a better year.
Because they're French and they're weird and they have and they hate everybody. So if you're not French, they don't like each other. They don't like you. It's just the way it is. Yeah. From what I've heard, I've never been to Montreal. And then the Edmonton Oilers fans, clearly, they've gone through some hardship year after year. And this
or
is
just Connor McDavid for having to deal with that.
Yeah, no, he might. He very much could be a finalist for the Masterton Trophy. No, but in all seriousness, no, Eves definitely deserves that, man. He's had such a tough go. I mean, what a brutal turn of events for him. I mean, you come to Anaheim, you have a hell of a year with Ryan Getzlaf, you get injured, and then you just don't come back after you sign an extension. You just don't come back. It's just really, really sad.
Yeah, because, I mean, at this point, again, we're back to that point where there's no guarantee if he's ever going to play again, right? Like, we thought that was all resolved. He came back from that, and that he was going to be good to go. And then again, like I said, the weakness came back, and we don't know if it has anything to do with the illness he had before, but you would assume it does, and that's disappointing, because it would have been nice for him to end his career, or at least end his time with the Ducks on a high note, and at least play his final season in Anaheim and have a decent season where he's able to just go out on his own terms. So hopefully it's not the end of his career, because that'd be a disappointing way to finish out.
No, for sure. Let's get on to your boy Sam Steele. You didn't get a chance to talk about his Hattie against the Canucks on the penalty shot when he goes backhand shelf on a ridiculous deke. Hell of a play by the kid, and yeah, man, he's a great player. He's put himself back in the limelight here in Anaheim.
Yeah, this was the game I was supposed to be back for. And, of course, I was on the bus, and I'm looking at, I look at the first goal, I see it's Sam Steele. I'm like, oh, it's great. Sam Steele got a goal. Check back about half an hour later, and I get some Wi-Fi. He's got a second one. And then at the end of the third, I'm getting a couple messages, and Sam Steele's a hat trick. I was like, God damn, this is the game I'm going to miss, of course. Like, the guy at one point was the clear-cut number one for Ducks prospects, and he finally has his coming out party at game 78 of the season. He finally gets things going, but that's kind of been his whole year. It took him a while to get things going in San Diego, and then before the call-up, he was just tearing it up down there. I think he had 4 straight games with goals. He had a point streak going as well. And then he comes up and he puts together 2 back-to-back games with an assist, and then follows that up with a hat trick against Vancouver. So
can we give a nice clap to Bob Murray for putting him in for the penalty shot? I mean, yeah. I mean, come on, Carlisle ain't doing that.
I feel like
Carlisle ain't putting the kid in.
I mean, the kid's
really?
on 2 goals.
He would have gave it to Perry. He would have been like,
Maybe.
"Oh, Corey, you've had a tough year. I mean, you're our veteran. Let's give you the puck."
Yeah, I don't know. When you got a kid like that on 2 goals, no matter who it is, I would give Randy the benefit of the doubt that he would put him in there. But it was nice either way to give it to him, and he shows that he should have been the guy that was in there, because the move he makes, I mean, he was feeling it that game, obviously with the 2 goals leading up into that. But that was
such a ballsy move. That's a ball. Move. People don't get it. That's a ballsy move by a kid.
That's a move that not many guys can pull off. The only guys I see that consistently pull off it, Barkov pulls that off a lot.
There we
go. But that's the guy who consistently pulls it off, and he's one of the best in the shootout. And for Sam Steele to go in on a penalty shot with all the nerves in the world, he's on 2 goals. He's looking for his first career hat trick. This is only his 4th career goal if he puts it in the back of the net. And cool, calm, and collected, he does it. I mean, he made it look easy. He made it look like he's been doing it all year. And all of a sudden, he's got 8 points now, I think, in 18 games, which is pretty respectable. It's about a 40-point pace on the season. Obviously, 3 of those 8 points are in that one game with the hat trick. But he was stringing together some good play. And he, even in the game tonight, didn't get on the score sheet, but he looked good. He's just looking more comfortable. And it's what we've seen for all the Ducks players on their second call-ups, or this year when they've been called up later in the year and had some time with San Diego. Max Jones comes up, looks great, looks confident. Troy Terry at his second call-up looks great. Sam Steele later on in the season. Can Jones
please score in every last game? Can he just have 3 goals? Can he just please score against Edmonton tomorrow, score against Calgary?
He should have 8 or 10 goals. I mean, tonight
what
again.
What the hell?
Again, tonight was a great save by Mike Smith. He probably should have just waited a little bit longer.
A microsecond, a millisecond, whatever you want to call it past that. Just hold it for that last bit of time and bury it.
Yeah, and he had enough space that he could have just, did a little bit more on the toe drag and held out his reach.
If he's on his forehand there, that's a tuck. He tucks that in on forehand. That's
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're being a little bit safe on the backhand to make sure you don't lose control of the puck. So I understand that, but
he came in from the left side. Is on his wing. That's a tough call. That's a tough play.
He's had so many of those this year where he should have scored.
He's in his own head. He's talking to himself on the bench.
Yeah. I mean, he looked so relieved after he scored the first one. Hasn't got one since because there's been plays like this where, it's not for a lack of trying. One guy I want to mention, though, is the pass on that play by Rikard Rakell. Rikard Rakell has looked immensely better over the last 5 or 6 games.
He really, really has looked better.
He had a stretch there where he had scored 4 straight games. Looked good in this one as well. Was making things happen. Again, like I said, that was a great pass to Max Jones. Is Rikard Rakell back? Maybe a little bit too late now, but it's nice. I mean, you want to see guys at least. This season's over. That guys are starting to get back to what we're used to seeing from them. And Rikard Rakell has been, the biggest disappointment in my mind for the Ducks this year. And the fact that he's finally, turning things around the later part of the season, hopefully looks good for how he could do next year because he needs to get back to 20 or 30 goals next year.
The guy is looking for his 39th point on the season in Game 67. And let's not forget, everybody, the Ducks don't have anyone who's probably going to hit 50 points unless Ryan Getzlaf gets back in the lineup because the guy closest to Getzlaf is Adam Henrique with 41. There's nobody on this team that's going to score 50 points this year. I think Getsy's probably done if they're going to have him at home. Let's hope not. But there's a good chance they just sit him the last 3 games. So Rikard Rakell has been he's been a really hard player to look at after scoring over 30 the past 2 years.
Yeah, but it is nice to see him getting back on it because that's what you kind of want to see. And yeah, so he had the 3-game stretch there. We had 2 against San Jose, 1 against LA, 1 against Vancouver. Looked good in the Winnipeg game despite the Ducks just not scoring in that one. And then he looked pretty good tonight, but again, the Ducks just really couldn't get anything going for 2 periods against the Flames. But yeah, I mean, that's bad when you look at the fact that the Ducks are going to have nobody hit 50 points likely. They somehow aren't the worst team when it comes to who leading by points on a team. Getzlaf is leading the team with 47. Arizona, I believe, is the worst because Clayton Keller is leading them with 46 points.
Ooh,
they're just in the same position, but the difference is Arizona's fighting for a playoff spot. The Ducks are way, way behind them. So, you don't need a guy to hit 50 points. I'm surprised any team can make the playoffs without a guy at least hitting 50 points, and Arizona probably looks like they're out of the playoffs now, but losing to Colorado tonight, they're 3 points behind them. But
thank God the Oilers are going to make the playoffs with Connor McDavid with career highs, Draisaitl with career highs, Nugent Hopkins with career. Oh yeah, they're not making.
Yeah, I think if at the beginning of the season you told me that, I mean, you didn't have to tell me that Connor McDavid was going to hit 100 points. I think that was obvious. But if you had told me Draisaitl was going to hit 50 goals and be over 100 points, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was finally going to get close to what they thought he was going to be and be almost a point-per-game player, that you would think the Oilers would make the playoffs with that. I mean, 200-point guys. Has there ever been a team that hasn't made the playoffs that has had 200-point guys?
Oh, I'd love that stat.
And been that far out of the playoffs? I mean, they are 8 points behind Colorado. 5 points behind Arizona, who's not even in a playoff spot. Like they are, I don't think they're mathematically eliminated, but they're pretty darn close to being mathematically.
They might as well be. They probably are. They probably are.
It's pretty ridiculous when now Draisaitl he is over 100 and McDavid's over 100, and there's only I think four guys over 100 points in the league, and they're not making the playoffs. I mean, yeah, the Blackhawks aren't making the playoffs, but Kane's the only guy over 100 there, and it happens. But man, I mean, 2 guys, 100 points.
Not even much.
We're talking about teams here that don't even have a guy at 50. You've got a guy that has double that, and they're not making the play. You got 2 guys who have double that. They're not making the playoffs. A guy with 40 goals, a guy with 50 goals, and they're not making the playoffs. Like that, that's saying something in Edmonton. And
Sam Talbot's worst year ever, coupled by no defense and the bottom 6 not being good. Wow, that's a lot. That's
It's
a
not
lot.
the worst spot to be in though, because you still have, but you still have two guys who are capable of 100 points.
Yeah, but
That's not a bad spot to be
do you
in.
not know who's running that team?
Well, it's not Chiarelli anymore.
No, it's Keith. Is it Keith Gretzky?
Keith Gretzky. That's not going to be for long. But again, like it's not the as laughable as they've been. People made fun of that Draisaitl contract, said he's never going to live up to it.
He's not.
And,
He's not.
well,
He can't
has.
anchor his own line. He can't anchor his own line. He's playing with Connor McDavid.
He's making what, $9 million?
Yes, to play with Connor McDavid.
But that's
that
fine.
is second C money. You need to dominate your own line.
Or that's second C money or first line winger money, and a guy who can put up 100 points and score 50 goals.
Yeah, because Connor McDavid really needs Leon Draisaitl on his wing. He can make anybody put the puck in the net. Just ask Sidney
but not
Crosby
at that
how much
rate.
money he's made Chris Kunitz. Give me a break.
Was
Give me a break.
Chris Kunitz ever a 100-point guy and a 50-goal scorer? Yeah, there's no doubt that McDavid.
Yeah, because to win cups, you needed Evgeny Malkin. Leon Draisaitl becomes second C.
There's no doubt that Connor McDavid makes Leon Draisaitl better, but it doesn't mean that Leon Draisaitl is not a bad player. And I think no matter what, we've seen a lot of guys with Connor McDavid that haven't been able to put up numbers like this, right?
But but is it worth it to sacrifice your middle six?
You can still bring in a guy, a second line center who doesn't. You don't need a Malkin. You don't need a Malkin. You can get a second line center for $6 or $7 million who's very good.
Yeah, but not $9 million.
You've got the best player in the game, and you've got a guy who could be playing with Connor McDavid, a consistent 40 or 50 goal scorer. That is a similar setup to what Washington has with Nicholas Backstrom and Alexander Ovechkin. I'm not comparing Draisaitl to Ovechkin, but
please
did Washington really have an Evgeny Malkin? They had Evgeny Kuznetsov, who's a great player in his own right.
He's a great player. He's a great player.
Yeah, he's a great player, but he's not a Malkin. You can get a player similar to Kuznetsov in free agency, or you can draft another center that you can work your way up. The Oilers are not in the worst position in the world. They need a goaltender. That's obvious. They have some defense prospects coming up. They should probably draft a defenseman with their first pick in this draft and maybe grab a center. Who knows? They have some options there. But when you have Connor McDavid and when you have a guy like Draisaitl who can score 40 or 50 goals, you're not in the worst position out of every team in the league.
How much money do you think Evgeny Kuznetsov makes?
I think he only makes about $6 or $7 million right now because
7.8 for about 70 points in 72 games. Not playing with Connor McDavid. Leon Draisaitl makes $9 million.
Yeah, but Draisaitl was also a 70-point guy not playing with Connor McDavid.
But he was supposed to anchor his own line. They brought him in as an anchor, and now he's playing along with perhaps the greatest player in the game. He's not worth the money. He's not worth the money.
If I have a guy, no matter who, I don't care who he's playing with. If he's, you're telling me like you're comparing him to Chris Kunitz playing with Sidney Crosby, which is no.
Yeah, I am.
If I have a guy who can put up 100 points and almost score 50 goals,
and the only year he's ever done it, by the way.
Yeah,
only year he's ever done it.
Fair enough. And originally the contract was worth too much. But if he can consistently do this, where he's a 40-goal scorer and a 90, 100-point guy, he's worth $9.5 million, even if he's playing with Connor McDavid.
He's making 8.5. He's not even making 9. He's making 8.5. Draisaitl's making 8.5.
Even better. Even better. That, over 100 points, 40 to 50 goals. If he can do that consistently, he'll be one of the best goal scorers in the game because not many people can score 40 goals consistently.
He's Kunitz 2.0. That's great.
I'm not gonna, and again, you're right. He's never put up 30. He's got almost 50 this year. There's arguments that it might not be sustainable. Who knows? But I would assume playing with Connor McDavid when you're a player of the ability of Leon Draisaitl, you can at least probably hit 30 consistently when you're almost doing it on your own.
He got paid because of his playoffs against Anaheim, which they didn't even win the series against. So that's why he got paid. He got paid because it was playoffs. And
they're looking pretty happy right now. I'm sure the Oilers are with his production. If he had been playing with Connor McDavid this year and only put up 70 or 80 points, then fine. But he's well surpassed his career high in goals and points. So I think they're pretty happy moving forward. They've got some good young players coming up forwards. They're just defense and goaltending is their issue.
Aberration. He sucks. He's not that. He is.
I like how people are saying that Draisaitl will never do it again, but nobody's saying Kucherov will never hit 120 points again. Like
Kucherov is just a different animal. He's better.
But he's better. But I don't think he's definitely not a consistent 120 point player. Like he's done. He has hit 2 seasons at 100 points.
Yeah, that's more than Draisaitl.
Yeah, but I don't think 120 points. He's getting to territory that we haven't seen in almost 2 decades.
Right, and it's on the assist column for him though. Like he's had over 30
a lot
goals.
of secondary assists and power play points.
Yeah. No, of course, a lot of power play points. He leads the league in assists with over 80. I think he's got 83 assists.
Yeah, he leads the league in secondary assists. He leads the league in power play points.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he doesn't lead the league in primary assists. I think that's actually Connor McDavid. So there's some things going for him there that show that he'll likely regress next year, which he could still hit 100 points. Like that on this team that's gonna still be together, he could still hit it. But it's just funny, like nobody's talking about Kucherov being a guy that could regress next year because he's having an insane season. But everybody's talking about Leon Draisaitl among others on guys that might not have as good a season next year. The only
you and
guy
I and Jason need an NHL show. You and I just literally spent 15 minutes arguing about Leon Draisaitl, Chris Kunitz, and now we're talking about Kucherov. Where has this Ducks?
Because there's 3 games. There's 3 games left in the season, and the Ducks just got thumped 6-1. And there's better things to talk about. I mean, the Ducks' best goal scorers out of the lineup. Our leading point getter right now is Adam Henrique with 41 points. If you triple his points, he only has, I think, 2 more points than Nikita Kucherov. So
it's a tough go. It's definitely been a tough go for us, man.
Sorry if you didn't enjoy us talking about the NHL right now. You must love.
We're almost at an hour.
I mean, I would be surprised if you wanted to talk more about the Ducks right now, the way they're playing. It's just it sucks. We don't want to beat a dead horse, and Ducks just lost 6-1. So you don't want to. Well,
let's get to questions. Do you have any questions in chat? Anybody in YouTube or anybody in Spreaker want to ask a question? If not, if you're not so compelled, then don't worry about it. We can get to our questions we have on Instagram and Facebook. So if no one has any questions, we can move along here.
Let's move on to Facebook.
Let's see if anyone wants to chime in while we do this. Craig says, head coach, who's going to be available? He put in parentheses too soon, but who do we want? Well, Craig, if you've been a listener to the show, maybe you're new, that's fine. We're all very, very big proponents of getting Rikard Rakell to Anaheim. If he can't make it, all eyes are on Dallas Eakins, and he's probably going to be the coach. Bob McKenzie came out and said that a few weeks ago, purely because he's earned it. He had a disastrous career in Edmonton, comes to Anaheim after being in the goals, would be a great story. He brings all these kids up in San Diego, develops them. He's a great players coach, comes to Anaheim, fulfills his destiny, and turns Anaheim around away from Randy Carlyle's just horrible dinosaur, prehistoric game of hockey that he was playing here, and brings in the fresh new vibe, and this team flourishes. So I think it's going to be definitely Dallas Eakins, but Rikard Rakell, we had him on the show, and we're definitely a big supporter of his.
Yeah, I think it's, if not 100%, like 99.9%, it's going to be Dallas Eakins. But again, I'm in the same boat that I would love to have Rikard Rakell. I think he's the best coach available on the market. Other than maybe Coach Q, but he's only a guy that specific teams should be searching for, teams that are going to be competitive in need of a new coach, and that comes with his resume. Gromberg's never coached in the NHL, and you look at the success that Quenneville's had. Yeah, he's the best coach available, but when you're looking at trying to build a team and bringing in a new guy and a new mindset, I think any of those teams looking to move in a different direction, Gromberg's the guy that you should go for. And I would love for the Ducks to get him. I don't think it's going to happen. But either way, whatever team he goes to, I think he's going to have success there because he has all the makings to be a really successful coach in this league.
It was so funny, man. I was listening to another hockey podcast. I mean, yeah, I do that too. It was a big podcast, and they were talking about coaches being thrown around, and they mentioned what a big leap of faith it would be, maybe in the next 5-10 years we have a European coach come in and coach an NHL team out of nowhere. And I was like, wow, really? And they wouldn't say Rikard Grönberg's name. They just kept saying, there's been a name thrown around, a guy from the SHL or Swedish Hockey League. He's been tossed around, and I don't know, he's been talked about. Not really sure if he's ever going to be able to get a chance, here in the next few years, but maybe one of these, old-time organizations are going to throw this guy in there. It's like, he's been talked about a lot. Just say Rikard Grönberg has been talked about a lot. And it's no secret anymore. It's not a secret anymore that he's desperately wanted to come to the United States and get his feet wet. And he even said to us, he doesn't care. He just wants to be in the North American game and work his way up or get an NHL shot. But most likely it's going to be AHL. So, hey, Eddie, is it not like the second best plan possible that Eakins gets moved up and Grönberg takes over the head coaching job with the Gulls?
We talked about this. It's possible.
It's very probably slim to none, but it's possible.
That's my ideal situation, sort of. Because if then, you don't want Eakins to be gone, and Grönberg's not going to last too long in the AHL before another team comes calling for him. So the only way that works out that he would end up being the coach of the Ducks is if things went wrong with Eakins. Unfortunately, I don't want that to happen. I want Dallas Eakins to come in and be successful. I feel bad for what he had to go through in Edmonton. So for him to come in to coach a couple of years and then get fired for Grönberg to come up, that would suck. We'd be hoarding assets at that point. And, Grönberg would definitely come if he had no NHL jobs. I'm sure, an AHL option, especially down in San Diego, would be pretty appealing to him. But I would have to think that some team is going to offer him an NHL job. There's no way I don't think he makes it through this summer without, getting a couple offers from some NHL teams looking for coaching positions.
Next question is also from Craig. He says, Kasha, I know he had surgery, but absolutely no updates. Yeah, I had nothing really to report other than he was out 6 months. So you're looking at we're not going to get the updates until training camp. I really don't feel like you're going to hear another peep out of this organization about Ondrej Kase until we'd see September.
Jeez, Ricky in our YouTube chat just brought up like nightmare fuel for me for the summer. So rightfully so. We've done. Well, I don't think we've done 79 podcasts this year, but we've done pretty close. In the 70s, we've missed a few.
In a year, a calendar year, or not, I don't know if you call it a calendar year, but from March to March, we've done over 104 episodes.
All right, so Ricky said, he proposed this to us. He said, Angels post-game shows until October? It's 162 games. Throughout the summer,
I just can't do baseball, Ricky. I'm gonna go to a few. I'm gonna go to a few
162 games.
I know. I just can't do back to back nights either. Man. I can't do a day game that starts at noon. I can't get into baseball. I was a big baseball fan as a kid, but just not as an adult. I know I'm gonna go to a few tailgates. It was brought up to us, I think, by Bombay, who was mysteriously not in chat tonight, by the way. He gives Jason and I and you so much crap on not starting on time, but he's not even in chat. We were talking about doing the Angels are doing, Ducks night, I think, in September. So we're talking about maybe going and doing that. But I just can't do baseball, man. I just can't get into it.
See, I mean, I like baseball, but I can't wrap my head around 162 games. And
that's too much.
5 straight nights of podcasts and switching between nights and days. Man.
We got bonus shows. You just no way. There's no way to do it.
Man, I wouldn't be able to handle it. It'd be too much. And then I'm not even close to being knowledgeable enough on baseball where you would want to listen to me talk about the Angels. I could name maybe 5 or 6 players on the Angels. That's not quality podcast material.
Does Gary DiSarcina still play shortstop? And does Darren Erstad play first base? If not, I don't know where I'm at anymore.
I'm sure that's a reference from 20 years ago that I clearly don't clearly don't know those players. I can tell you who plays
is Tim
now,
Salmon playing? I'm just curious. He won the World Series then, by the way. Daniel on Instagram says, "What are your off-season plans?" Well, our off-season plans are to expand the hell out of the show. We're going to be doing a lot here coming in this upcoming off-season with websites, with merchandise, with expanding here on Twitch. We have a lot of plans coming up here. But personally, I'm looking forward to a few weeks off of podcasting every other night. So we'll be doing as many bonus shows as we can. But we're definitely going to be taking it easy this summer.
If you were around last summer, it'll be a similar schedule to that. So, we have a draft show coming up. We're going to be, I guess first things first, April 9th, we're going to do a live broadcast on Twitch for the draft lottery. Not sure if all three of us will be there. It depends on who's available, but if not, I will be there because I'll be running.
Might just be you and Jason and I meeting people for drinks somewhere locally who wanted to watch it live. So who knows?
Yeah. Either way, one or two of us will be there, so we'll be doing that. And then we are also, again, after that, once that we know where the Ducks are going to be drafting and maybe a little bit further into the playoffs so we can know where that second pick in the first round is going to be, we'll be having Steve Kournianos, the draft analyst, back on for a draft preview show. One of my favorite podcasts we've ever done was with Steve, which was last year.
He's so good, man.
Draft. He knows everything. He puts out a list each year of his top 400 prospects for the draft. I mean, we
think
see
of the amount of work that takes to do.
We see guys put out their top 93, which is the first 3 rounds, and think that's a lot. And he puts out his top 400 rankings. So if you want the best guy possible to talk about prospects, Steve's the guy to have on. He made some interesting choices last year. We talked about who the Ducks should draft, and they ended up drafting a couple guys he focused on specifically. He mentioned the Ducks should go for Blake McLaughlin in the 3rd round. And guess who they drafted in the 3rd round? It was Blake McLaughlin. So, and he had him ranked, I think, as a 2nd round player. And, that was an interesting one. It was a fun talk, so we'll have him on again. We'll obviously be doing draft coverage when the draft comes around. We'll have a draft post-game show, I guess you could call it. After the draft will be a post-draft show where we'll talk about who the Ducks drafted. And then hopefully we can line up some more interviews with Ducks prospects. I think we interviewed almost everybody last year for the first couple of rounds. We had Lundestrom, we had Perbix, we had McLaughlin, we had... I think that was it. Who was the 2nd-round pick last year? Oh, Benoit Olivier Gru. We had him as well.
Mm-hmm.
So... It was fun. So hopefully we can do some more of that in the summer. And as Pat said, we've got merchandise on the way. Hopefully, a website on the way. A lot of big things planned for next season, including moving the podcast full time to Twitch because it's about 1 million times easier to use than YouTube as well. So a lot of things going on for next year.
It will still be viewable on YouTube, just post game live. Will be on
live.
Twitch,
Will be on Twitch.
We'll move it to. We want to hit every platform. A lot of people complain about not being able to comment in our chat from their phone while on YouTube. So Twitch is very, very easy to do, and you can do both. So that helps everybody out. But we'll still be on YouTube if you got to listen at work the next day or however you listen to us on YouTube. David Roska from Instagram also asked, who will the Ducks get for the new head coach? We just covered that. Thank you, David and Daniel, for that question. And then Derek Russell on Instagram says, what should we do with Carter Rowney this next season? Trade or keep? How do you like that guy? I mean, he fills the role for that bottom 6, but are you a keeper or send him off somewhere else kind of guy, Eddie?
Yeah, I'm a keeper. He's done nothing wrong this year. He's been one of the only signings that the Ducks made that actually lived up to what, or even maybe surpassed what you thought you were going to get from him. Turned out to be a really solid penalty killer, can contribute offensively on the 4th line every now and then, and just plays the game the right way. As cliche as that sounds, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And defensively, he seems to be a really responsible player. So I would love to keep him around. I know it was a weird 3-year contract, so he's still got 2 years left. But he's those types of guys, the type of player that I would like to keep around on this team. And I think he can be an effective 4th-line player. And he's a guy that if you healthy scratch him, it's not surprising. It's not the end of the world. And then if you trade him, there's always going to be teams, I think, looking for his type of player. So if you do have to trade him, it's not going to be too hard, especially at the money that he is making at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And he's put up a career high 17 points this year. Of course, he's played the most games since coming over from Pittsburgh. But yeah, 2 more years in the deal, not a problem with him in his game at all. I think he fills the role, and he's a 15 to 20 point guy, maybe 25 at his peak. And that's not a bad move for the Ducks. I don't feel like you got to have these kind of role players. You just have to.
Yeah, no, exactly. What were we missing? There was one thing we were missing for the show. Now I can't remember. We had something to say, and I have no idea what it was anymore.
Well, that is it for us today. Since the show must go on, and Eddie's question will be left behind, or his topic will be left behind here for the next show if we can.
Oh, I got it. We forgot we had to update the draft lottery. That's
and you need to update FM 3 stars, dude.
Don't even worry about that.
Oh my God! It's been like
done.
2 months.
Well, I've been busy, so it's getting done. It's gonna happen. There's still 3 games left in this month of 3 stars, so it will get updated hopefully tonight, if not tomorrow. After the Oilers game.
Ottawa's getting the number 1 overall pick, and it's going to go to Colorado.
Right.
Let's just say that now.
So this is how it is right now. So Ottawa's number 1, 60 points. Likely they're going to get it. LA second, 65 points. This is reverse standings, by the way. New Jersey third with 67. Detroit won 4 in a row. I think this is updated. They're at 70 points. Buffalo at 72, and Anaheim now at 74 because the Rangers won today, and the Ducks moved from 6th last from 7th last to 6th last, and they now have a 7.5% chance at getting the number 1 overall pick instead of having a 6.5% chance. And if they can move past Buffalo and Detroit, I think the lowest they can actually mathematically finish right now is 4th last. That would give them a 9.5% chance. So you're looking at a pretty big difference of about 3% in being able to get the number 1 overall pick. And I think the big thing too is from 7th to 4th, you have about an 8% chance of getting a top 3 pick difference, going from 20.4% to 28.8%. So Detroit needs to keep winning. They're stringing together wins at the right time. The only problem is the Sabres have lost 5 in a row, and they're the worst team over their last 10 games. In the entire league. So the Sabres are doing their best to hold on to that number 5 spot. I would like the Ducks to finish in the bottom 5 to have not a guaranteed chance, but a better chance of at least getting a top 5 pick. That was my goal for this entire season when it started going south, was at least get a top 5 pick. Not that I'd be disappointed with the 6th overall pick, but I just kind of like the sound of a top 5 pick, and I believe every team who is in the bottom 5, I believe it might be bottom 3, goes on to TSN for the draft lottery, and I really want to see Bob Murray sitting in a chair on TSN for the draft lottery. So if it's the bottom 5 GMs that show up, I want them to finish bottom 5 so he can show up there.
I mean, they've got what? Edmonton, they have a chance to beat tomorrow. The Flames and the Kings. They just have not gotten a game together against the Kings. So, and they just lost to the Flames big time. There's a chance they lose the next 3 games. There's a big chance. Yeah, there's a big chance.
Well, Draisaitl probably gets a hat trick tomorrow, so he's at 50, and you lose your bet. The Flames are the Flames, and we saw what happened today. And then the last game against the season, that game's going to literally mean nothing now. We thought it was going to mean everything, but it's probably going to mean nothing for both the Kings and.
How was Buffalo? After just destroying everybody at the beginning of the year, 1-8-1 in the last 10. What a garbage show!
Poor Brandon Montour leaves the dumpster fire of Anaheim and ends up going to a team that is worse now in the standings. In the Sabres.
It's so bad.
If I have to feel bad for any fans this year, out of every team that's going to miss the playoffs, it's probably Sabres fans. Because there was so much promise. Middlestat was supposed to be like the rookie of the year this year, and he's been not great. Skinner has almost. I think he hasn't hit 40 yet. He was on pace to hit like 50. Now he's like slumped hard like the rest of the team, and things haven't been going well for him. Eichel is falling off a bit. Brandon Montour goes over there. They're like, oh, we get Montour, it's gonna be good. Carter Hutton was playing so well, and then all of a sudden, like everything just goes out the window, and this team the wheels just fall off. And they're about to secure themselves another top 5 pick after getting Rasmus Dahlin last year. So
Jeff Skinner, since March 1st, has 3 points, 1 goal, 2 assists. Yeah.
Since when?
That's how it's gone. Since March 1st.
Yikes. Yeah, that's how it's gone. That's not a good look. I feel for you guys. There's bright things in the future, especially with another first overall pick, and. But I feel bad for them this year. I think out of every team, they're the ones I feel the worst for.
Gone are the November and December days of the Buffalo Sabres, and welcome to the second half of the year when you still have to be good.
At one point, weren't they the best team in the Eastern Conference for a
small stretch there? Maybe it was close.
No, that was Tampa Bay. They were the best. I think they were for like the first 2 weeks of the season.
Might have been.
Yeah. Which was weird, but the first 2 weeks mean nothing, obviously, because now look at Tampa Bay. Consistency is everything, folks, because Tampa Bay is consistently good, and they are by far the best team in the league, and the Sabres, who were at one point the best team in the Eastern Conference, have now consistently been bad since about November. So that's how things go.
Yeah, that is how they go, and that's how the night's gone for the Ducks, just consistently bad. And so we revisited that tonight against the Flames as the Ducks dropped that one 6-1. Ducks play again tomorrow night against Edmonton. There'll be another post-game show tomorrow night. Your hosts are questionable. We'll see what happens. Eddie will be there. I'm not sure if I will be there. We'll see how that works out, but we'll definitely have a show tomorrow night. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for sitting through the NHL stuff, and we love to talk about that. Another great place to catch that kind of NHL talk is on our Patreon. If you're not a Patreon member and you would like to hear 4 more shows a month from us, go check us out on Patreon. Different tiers get different shows, so there's a little bit for everybody. If you're a top-tier guy, you get a puck bottle opener with our logo on it, which is pretty cool. Eddie brought one home with him. Are you showing the crowd?
Yes, I'm showing everybody.
Very nice. Show our puck bottle opener that you get. And I'm mailing off the other 3. So all of our Patreon members will have those here. We're going to mail them off on Monday, so those will be delivered. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow night. Have a great night.
See ya.
Thanks for ruining my show, by the way. That's it. I'm sorry you guys had to sit through that, but this is an obligation, contract obligation, they told me. So my kneecaps are sweating, and I really got to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to have to let you guys go. Thank you. Bye.